What does it mean to look at the state of Nebraska consciously? What is the evolution of our state? What comes next? And most importantly, how in the world do we attract and retain these young professionals? My name is Lynn, Hinderaker, and you are watching WowBiz Nebraska. Some of the key foundational concerns in our entire state hit this news desk every other week. You see a lot of new ideas on this show. Thank you for joining me. So whether you're interested in transformational business strategies and tactics, that's big, or you want to talk about your community and somehow revitalize the community so that people don't leave, and it feels contemporary and even artistic in certain ways. If either one of those things attract you, you're in the right place at the right time. So I'm going to share with you something that people have heard in the economic development community. Maybe if you're in the Chamber of Commerce world here across the state of Nebraska, we have at least 180, 85 chambers of commerce. And a lot of them are kind of wondering, what is our role as we go forward? Because it's clearly changing. There's a lot of anxiety about how do we stay relevant and important? How do we hang on to our members? What do we have to do besides organize occasional luncheons? I'm going to answer that question at the back end of the show. But right now, I'm going to jump right into a very, I don't want to use the word contentious, that wouldn't be the right word, but certainly interesting material that was shared with me and a number of other economic developers here in the state in Lincoln just a few years ago by a very respected researcher. His name is Hank Robinson. At the time, he was working with the Exarban Foundation. He's doing some other things right now, but the bottom line is he shared a lot of detailed information that was worrisome. And I have a feeling that a lot of people just don't know about this. And if they heard these facts or assertions, statistics, whatever they are, they would say, well, I didn't realize that. And what are we supposed to do about it? I'm just going to pause there for just a minute, because digesting the material, looking at it with perspective, and by the way, there are many positive things that have happened in Nebraska. I don't want to overstate the negativity or the problems that I'm going to share with you right now. But we all do know that taxes are fairly high, relatively high here in the state, and it's probably largely because we have a population problem, and increasingly the older group of our workforce is getting older and getting bigger, and the young folks are not, they're not as many of them as we'd like to have under these circumstances. But anyway, so here we are. I'm going to go over some of the key points. I'm just going to go right down the thing, and I'm going to look at you after I share a couple of these key points, and I just want to ask you to like absorb it and realize the implications. If you have your children, and are they going to be here in the future, and why or why not? You know, think about stuff like that right here. So the very first thing this gentleman said to all of us, and everybody's sitting around, little tables and having a cup of coffee or whatever. He said, our state is in a perfect storm. It's a great thing to say. It's in a perfect storm. We need a moonshot. That's what he said right off the bat. We need a moonshot. We need something big. We need a new vision. We need to go to the moon. It's a heck of a way to open up a tremendous presentation. If somebody asked him, well, how would we do that, by the way? I mean, what are you talking about there? The first thing he would say is, number one, control the narrative. Make sure that you are clear on what people are saying about the state, about the company, about the county, about the things that are happening in the state and in the community, and be intentional about what you're doing on a week-by-week or month-by-month basis. He said, just to start here before diving into all these statistics, and I'm going to shorten them, of course, he says, but we have no choice but to make changes. Now, we live in an era where artificial intelligence is coming forward, and so we kind of have a sense of that, and we certainly see some economic change, some political change, and so on. So change is already kind of swirling around all of us, but he said right off the bat, we have to change right here in the state of Nebraska. Hard for some people to digest that and accept that. We're not on the consideration list. So when you ask a 19, 20, 21-year-old young person, they're graduating, they're kind of getting ready to go out into the world and earn a living, etc. We're not even being thought of. We're not even being considered. I mean, this is a hard thing to swallow if you love the state, love your community. So, but the worst part of that bad thing is that retaining people is the top issue that we face. If you can't hold on to your own people, it's going to be extremely difficult to try to get people from Iowa, Nebraska, or all over Kansas, the Midwest, wherever, and have them come to Nebraska. You got to hold on to who you've got. Attraction of capital, right? Attracting money, attracting businesses, right? Has long been on the agenda. Attracting investment and jobs. These are all standard goals. Every economic developer across the state or across the country has these specific goals. But we are at a moment where a sea change is required. So when I heard that, it's like I stepped up. I had to put my phone away for a second and listen carefully to this man. But frankly, most of the people in the room did not seem particularly, I don't know, excited or overwhelmed, or I didn't see any emotional response there. This gentleman wanted to say, we're flat in growth, and we've got to learn how to retain our people, as we just said. We're undertold, this is kind of clever, he says, we're undertold and undersold. Now, I would love to share with you at length, but I'm not going to do that, the importance of marketing a state, how to market a state, particularly to young folks who are very sensitive to trends and are comfortable accepting change, looking at the world differently perhaps than a lot of the leaders of the state look at the world. So this is an issue right there. The first thing is to simply identify the target audience, right? Segment. Everybody knows this, but for some reason we don't do that here. It's like, yeah, anybody who comes, we're happy to have them here. Come on in, it's great. Here's the main street. You got a job, that's great. Doesn't matter. Just come see us and stay. That'd be nice, right? But we're not acting smart in that regard. Segmentation allows us to be precise about the features and benefits that we can provide a certain type of person. And I'm suggesting to you that there are three kinds of people in America today, and this is a great presentation. I'm not going to go down this road too far, but there are traditionalists. I think we all know that. About 28% of all people in America are traditionalists. And then we have moderns. I've said this before on this show. These are people, you see them, they're very progressive. They like to get going. They want to make money. Financial and wealth, that's very important to them. And building, they like to have a lot of concrete and, big, tall buildings, a lot of people. That's their idea of a great and a successful life and career and community. And then there's this third group of people. A gentleman named Richard Florida named them cultural creatives way back about 25 years ago or thereabouts. And he explained that they are somewhat different than others, very well educated, by the way, the best educated segment in our country. There's 50 million of them. So we're talking about a lot of people that are well educated right off the bat, right? There's a lot of other qualities, lifestyle stuff that I'm not going to go into right now. But 38% of our entire population are these people. I don't call them cultural creatives anymore. I call them urban naturals. Urban naturals, we have two opposite words, urban and natural. Of course, that'd be like rural. You put two opposites together, you have kind of a diversity, which leads to innovation. I'm sure you get the general idea. This is a very interesting word. I won't go down this road too far, but those are the three segments. And I would suggest to anybody watching, we want to focus on these urban natural people. We want to identify them, and we want to get them to come to Nebraska and have a great life and lifestyle. But it's selling to them is a matter of psychology, not demographics. Well, our salaries are competitive. We have good perks over here, etc. Most people think that's how you recruit an employee. But these urban natural people are not necessarily wooed so much by that. but rather talking about their values and focusing on and being curious about them and validating them rather than trying to sell them on us and our pay package and all that stuff over here. It's a very different, and it's an important thing to understand, is the psychology and the self-image of these people I've just mentioned to you. And there should be groups of people sitting around talking about who are these people and what do we have to say and how do we make our community different or unique so that these people really, they really love what they're looking at. This is what should be happening right now. It's not happening. All right, I'm going to move on here, and I can't actually do that in this portion of the show. It just goes on and on and on, but it says here, sustained targeting effort. There's a tendency amongst people who are not really professional marketers, so to speak, and they make a full page ad and they put it in a certain publication and maybe a second ad, but that would be much smaller. Maybe go from a full page or a half page ad down to a quarter page or an eighth of a page. And that should be enough, right? I mean, they see the ads, everybody sees it, and the phone's ringing. It should be, how come we're not getting these people in here? Well, they're naive. It takes consistent marketing and messaging to make something happen. But people and workforce are the key issue for our entire state. I reached out to a unicameral member just recently and emphasized that to her, and she diverted me to another person and another person. Somebody else would know more about that. The committees, the bureaucracy, and so on. All of this becomes intangible barriers to actually getting something done right here in the state of Nebraska. We're going to break away for our sponsor today. They are a wonderful group of people, and they are on the edge as well. This is a company called Trust TV, and I'm going to speak to you for just a couple minutes about Trust TV. They have identified trust as the elusive quality in our society today, right? And people feel like they're skeptical. That's not really what I'm going to get. And they're not going to really give that to me. And they're not as good as they say they are, et cetera, et cetera. And this builds up, of course. So you have collective skepticism and a lack of credibility. And so I would suggest to you that Trust TV is probably at the very front edge of all marketing and messaging today, because they understand that and they utilize an interviewer, so nobody has to be clever and jump around and say perfect things and so on. You've got a media professional, and so that's how you explain your value, what we stand for, what we stand for, what we believe in right here in our company. So if you do need this or you do need that, please consider us, because you'll be at least dealing with people who are authentic and really want to give you everything and more of what it is that you feel you need and solve your problem. Not our problem, it's your problem. We want to help you solve your problem and help you identify the problem. This is the depth that these Trust TV, and of course there's video. That's what the whole thing is. It's a video interview. Could be 8 minutes, could be 4 minutes, could be 2 minutes, all right, depending on the budget and a lot of other variables we won't go into, but you need video in your marketing mix if you want the salespeople to be happy and comfortable and go out and say, hey, you've heard about us, you've seen us, yeah, I saw that video, right? So it's much easier to have a conversation that includes two things, two qualities, right? This is how salespeople need to be thinking so they can follow Trust TV and all the impact, the emotional and strategic impact that it has, and talk about two things. The first thing is curiosity. Salespeople need to become more, I'd love to know about this, and I wondered what you think about that, and I noticed you've done this, and very interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that. Got to be curious. And then as the prospect kind of chats and unloads and talks about what they learned recently, and they've done this and they've done that, then the salesperson needs to validate. I see now what you're doing, and that is so awesome. You guys are ahead of the whole curve. I can't believe it, right? This is what salespeople need to be doing after Trust TV is become kind of the barrier, the main thing that gets in there and opens up people's brains so they go, I didn't ever hear your company, but I did see a video that was pretty cool. I saw it on the top of a website. I saw it in social media, right? I saw it on an email blast, some newsletter blast. I've seen this Trust TV and I've seen the media professional, and it looks pretty dang cool, and I really understand now what it is that you're trying to do. That's what Trust TV will do for your organization. Check them out, Trust TV. They're on the newbraska.com website. That's where it's all happening, especially if you're in real estate or if you own some company that needs to have a little greater credit, or you're brand new, got a brand new product. You need Trust TV right there working with you and for you. That's right. Trust TV, man. Whoa, so much going on out there in the marketplace today. And if you can establish trust and utilize curiosity and validity or validation, those two things right there will lift you up. You'll walk around, feel welcome. People want to know about you. And they keep, I saw that Trust TV thing. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. Give that some thought. All right, so we're back here to some of the things that came out when researcher Hank Robinson was working for Exarban Foundation. He was telling everybody what he learned, and there was so much I can't even get into it, but I'll tell you this, 91% of all young workers, they graduate, they want to go somewhere, they want to do something cool, and you ask them, what is the number one thing? What do you really want to see when you talk to an employer? And they said, 91% of them said innovation. I want to work for a company that, likes to innovate, do things, do new things. I think that would make them more competitive. And of course, I want to work for a company that wins and does well and all that. So innovation is extremely important. But right here on page 3 or 4, what I learned from this gentleman that I've referred to again and again here is that Nebraska ranks number 46 in innovation, number 46 out of 50 states. So particularly innovation in operations, by the way. But in addition to that, we want to be able to move faster. We don't have as many people in our state as many other states do. So when you have fewer people in your state, you should be able to make decisions quicker and enable them and act upon them and so on. You have to do it quicker. There just are fewer people around. Get right to it, right? But we don't do that. We're behind the curve. Now, why are we doing? Why is that, right? Fear. We don't want to make a mistake. So we want to see what they did and what they're talking about, what they're thinking about. And I don't know, we'll just see what happens here and see what we should copy or do a little bit, right? And then everybody's ahead of us, right? Everybody's ahead of us. And then we're mad about that. Why didn't they choose us? Why didn't they come here, right? I just explained the answer to that right now. By the way, we are losing, I talk about young professionals a lot. I was up in Schuyler, Nebraska a while back and helping them out with some strategic planning. And I had a little time. I went over to the local bank and spoke to the gentleman that kind of ran the bank there in downtown. And he said, I have to tell you, I can't find one person that wants to work here in the bank and is qualified to come in here and sit down, dress nicely, talk to the customers, take care of a lot of administrative things, stay on top of deposits and so on and so forth. He said, I can't find anybody. It's unbelievable. I'll pay them well, You don't have to do a lot of hard work in that particular, we'll call it a white-collar position. Couldn't believe it, right? But on top of that, the fact of the matter is, we just learned this as well. He said, we're also losing our lower wage hourly workers as well. We're talking manufacturing, distribution, some of the rural jobs and so on. So it's really a difficult situation. But Hank Robinson, as I've mentioned, he also agreed that young workers are averse to the management style of employers. Now, this is a professional researcher. This isn't somebody that, is just pulling stuff up and wisecracking or whatever. He's studied how people think and feel about their jobs and why they're happy or unhappy. And the communication style of most baby boomers and even Gen X employers is not collaborative. It's not conducive to the way these young people have been taught. By the way, this leads to some interesting stuff I'm going to briefly speak to, but this is a lead thing here, kind of kind of a thing. And here's the tough question that you'll see right here, where you say, how many of your employees are thriving? How many of them are really feeling good and doing well? You'll see this image right here. It doesn't look too good, does it? Right. Well, when you ask these people, what is it you want? And why are you, less than thrilled? In fact, 43% of them are looking for a job, just flat out. A smaller percentage are depressed and also have issues with relationships. They can't seem to connect with anybody. It's so much easier to sit home and look at the phone and flip through it, but they can't create and develop sustainable, authentic, genuine, satisfying relationships. And also, when things happen at the office or in the factory, wherever they're at, it really drags them down. They don't know how to cope with them. One of the things that great effective therapists with groups of employers or employees have is this particular concept right here called flow. Flow is a very interesting thing. It requires training and guidance and so on. And you work with young folks that are employees for maybe 12, 13 weeks, some kind of a course. It's a state of mind, the feeling of complete engagement in a creative or even a playful activity. Think about that now. This is the thrust when you're with these young folks, and they've never heard this. They're like, "What? You mean if somebody offends me or threatens me or something, then shouldn't I threaten him back?" And it's like a knee-jerk mechanical reaction. And this person says it's not about that. It's about your thoughtful and conscious response to difficult situations, people saying inappropriate things, or you don't get your fair share of whatever it is, and so on. It's a very, very interesting thing. In fact, if you were trying to attract young people to the state of Nebraska, and maybe a large company, and you say, well, how many of you want, the number one thing would be a salary, good money. Go ahead and raise your hands. And, you have maybe a third of those people. Let's say it's 100 younger people, young workers looking for something. Maybe a third of them would raise their hand. What about benefits, and let's take it even further, and wellness, kind of a feeling of you like it here and you have plenty of time to play with your dogs at home or meet your family or whatever, How many of you feel like that's an important part of a job? About maybe 10, 15% at the most would go like this. Well, gosh darn it, anyway, you have to tell me right now, are any of you feeling depressed in here, feeling kind of down, I just don't know what to do? About 60% of your entire workforce, especially under 50, would raise their hand. Kind of depressed. Don't feel so good, don't really feel like the job is meaningful. There's no meaning in it for me, right? So how do you get these people? Well, give them more money, I got to go. That kind of thing goes on behind the scene all the time. Just throw in some extra benefits and let them know that that's really good, But if you stand up in front of all of them and you said something else, because remember, they're sitting there going, I don't know. I don't really like this place that much. Nothing's tripping my trigger. And say, look. This is what I want to know. What is it you really want here? What is important to you? I'm going to hold up a little image here, and I want you to hold up your hands if it strikes you as something that's really important. All right? Are we ready with this? Here we go. 2 words. Good energy. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of management groups and senior people and so on, they don't even know what the word good energy means. It's just some kind of a broad idea, doesn't? But I guarantee you about 40 to 60% of all the people sitting there would go, yeah, I want good energy. And then how do you get good energy, right? Relationships. What about if a company says, we're gonna serve the community? We're going to get into social responsibility, and we want all of you to suggest and chat with us a little bit about what you think the nonprofits are, people who need help, maybe underserved families, they don't have a lot of money, they need help. they can't move around, the car's bad, they can't get to work, you know, any of those kinds of things. Do you want to contribute to those people? Anybody? 80%. 80%. Yeah, I want to see those people be happier. I don't want to be a selfish person, right? I think that's a great idea. You guys got to follow through on that because you talk a lot, but you don't actually get that much done. But I'm here, and it looks like just about everybody wants to be socially responsible, and most of us want good energy, good vibes, shall we say? Huh? Absolutely. So this, I'm telling you, the problem is massive. It's really dragging down employers in the state of Nebraska, and yet the solution is far away from what they're talking about. They're not even thinking about this. Good energy. What are we talking about here, you know? Huh? They don't get it. They don't get it. And by the way, I'm going to wrap this up by talking about that particular idea. The top scholar in Nebraska, young woman, graduated here in Nebraska, had a big meeting. The governor was there, gave her a big trophy of some sort. She had a little speech. She said, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I've been in Minneapolis the last year or so, and I think that Nebraska should be more like the people in Minneapolis. We should look and act and just do what they do. So I'm not super inspired to come back to Nebraska. Thank you very much. Goodbye. So this all means that we don't understand what this generation wants from Nebraska, from the leaders, from the community, the civic. And most of those people kind of deep down inside, they kind of know it, but they don't know what else can I do but be me. And so as a result of that, we have this dribble out of the state and very little inflow. And all of this because we have a different notion of what the state is and how we should all look and behave. And that's the cultural gap that we're struggling with right now, right here in Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderaker with WowBiz Nebraska. I've shared a lot of insight. There's a lot more to learn. Thanks for watching. I look forward to visiting with you personally. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your input. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.